Canada has a story problem, not a shortage of stories. The opposite. This country has produced some of the most dramatic, most violent, most morally complicated events in the history of the modern world. Wars fought on foreign soil by men who volunteered before their country even asked. Political scandals that make Watergate look like a parking ticket. Entire communities erased, not by accident, but by design. And yet, ask most Canadians what they know about their own history, and you'll get the same handful of answers. Confederation, the railway, Vimy Ridge, maybe the October crisis if they paid attention in school. That's not history. That's a highlight reel. Somewhere along the way, someone decided that Canadians didn't need the full story, that certain chapters were too complicated, too uncomfortable, too likely to raise questions that didn't have comfortable answers. So they gave us a version, cleaned up, polished, safe enough to put on a government website and teach to 16-year-olds without starting an argument. This channel exists because that version isn't good enough. Not because the real history of Canada is darker, though sometimes it is, because it's truer, because the people in it were real, because what happened to them still matters, and because you deserve to know. Canada Untold is built on a single belief, that the real history of this country is more interesting than the version most of us were given. Not interesting in the way that trivia is interesting in the way that changes how you see the place you live, the roads you drive on, the institutions you trust, or don't trust anymore. Every video on this channel starts with a question that the textbooks answer in one sentence and then move on from. A name, a date, a battle, an act of parliament. But history isn't made of sentences. It's made of decisions, of people under pressure, making choices they couldn't take back in circumstances they didn't fully understand. That's what we're going to follow here. The soldiers who were sent to a beach in France in 1942 and didn't come home, and the men in London who knew before the boats left the coast that the mission was doomed. The black pioneers who built ranches and towns across the Alberta prairies in the 1880s and 1990s, and the systematic campaign that erased them from the provincial story. The politician who was on the money in your wallet, who built the railway that holds this country together, and who sold the contract for that railway to the highest bidder before the ink on Confederation was dry. The province that joined Canada on a promise and has spent the 75 years since wondering if it made the right call. These are not obscure stories. They happened here, to real people, in places you can still visit. They just didn't make the curriculum. Let me give you a taste of what's coming. On the 19th of August, 1942, over 6,000 Allied soldiers, the majority of them Canadian, climbed into landing craft off the coast of England and headed for a beach in Nazi-occupied France. The operation was called Jubilee. The objective was the port town of Dieppe. Within 10 hours, more than 900 Canadians were dead. Nearly 2,000 more were captured. The casualty rate was almost 60%. It was the single bloodiest day in Canadian military history. And here is the thing that the official accounts take a long time to say plainly. Senior British commanders had intelligence before those boats ever left the harbor that suggested the Germans knew they were coming. They sent the men anyway. That story is coming, and it is not a comfortable one. In 1882, a man arrived in the Alberta Territory with almost nothing. No land, no money, no connections. He was black, in a time and place where that fact was used as a reason to deny a man almost everything. Within 20 years, he had built one of the most successful cattle operations in the province. He was known, respected by ranchers across the territory. His horsemanship was legendary. His name was spoken with a kind of awe. His name was John Ware, and almost nobody outside Alberta knows who he is. That story is coming too. And then there is the story of a prime minister, the one who built the Canadian Pacific Railway, who stitched this country together from sea to sea, who is remembered today as one of the great architects of the nation. The same man who accepted $250,000 from the railway company while simultaneously awarding them the contract. When Parliament found out, it nearly ended his career. It nearly ended the country. The Pacific Scandal, Canada's Watergate, 50 years before Watergate. That one is coming. A note on how this channel works. Every video covered here is built from primary sources: parliamentary records, military dispatches, diaries and letters from the people who were actually there, declassified government files, provincial archives, the actual documents, not the summaries of the summaries. That matters, because the further you get from the original source, the easier it becomes to sand off the edges, to make the story more manageable, more palatable, more useful to whoever is telling it. The record doesn't lie the same way. It just sits there, and if you're willing to read it carefully, it tells you things that nobody in an official capacity particularly wanted you to know. That's the work. And alongside the documents, there is context, because a document without context is just words on a page. The date of a battle doesn't tell you why the battle was lost. The name of a law doesn't tell you who it was designed to hurt. History is a system. Events connect to other events. Decisions made in Ottawa in 1885 echo in Indigenous communities in 2025. A railway contract signed in 1772 shapes the political geography of this country for the next 150 years. Every video on this channel will give you both the story and the system it lived inside. Not a summary, not a listicle, not a hot take. The full story told the way it deserves to be told. If you've ever sat in a history class and felt like you were getting the outline but not the story, this channel is for you. If you've ever read a single line in a textbook, the Métis were defeated at Batoche in 1885, and felt the weight of everything that sentence wasn't saying, this channel is for you. If you've ever driven past a place in this country and felt that something happened there, something that mattered, and nobody thought to tell you what it was, this channel is for you. Subscribe, a new story every week. And to start, next week we go to Halifax. The year is 1917. The First World War is in its third year, and on the morning of December 6th, two ships are moving toward each other in Halifax harbour. One of them is carrying relief supplies. The other is carrying enough high explosives to level a city. The collision that follows kills nearly 2,000 people, blinds hundreds more, and flattens an entire neighborhood in less than 20 seconds. It is the largest man-made explosion in human history before the atomic bomb. And the story of what happened in the hours and days after, the relief effort, the cover-up, the heroes nobody remembers, that is the story most Canadians have never heard. That's next week. Don't miss it.